The first hour after you wake up plays a disproportionate role in how your cardiovascular system functions for the next 24 hours, and most people don't realize this. They stumble out of bed, they skip breakfast or grab something quick like cereal or toast, and they rush into the day without understanding that they've just set the tone for their heart and blood vessels for the rest of the day. What's striking is that for millions of people, this first hour already includes taking prescribed cardiovascular medications. I'm talking about blood pressure tablets, beta blockers, diuretics, drugs that their doctor has quite rightly prescribed to reduce risk, to protect the heart and help them to live longer. And these medications matter. They save lives, but they also have side effects and they cost money, and Big Pharma only gets richer. But here's the part that almost never gets discussed. Even the best medications are working on top of the physiological symptoms you send your body every morning. Your cardiovascular system is anticipatory. It's constantly adjusting based on cues like hydration, movement, and nutrition, and many of those signals are sent within minutes of waking. And I honestly believe that the right lifestyle changes can have a greater impact on someone's cardiovascular health and longevity than any single medication that I could prescribe you. What the research shows is that specific morning behaviors can reduce blood pressure, can improve vascular function, they can enhance autonomic balance, and they can lower your cardiovascular risk by meaningful, measurable amounts. I'm not talking about supplements here. I'm not on about biohacking or complicated routines. I'm talking about simple habits that take less than an hour in total. Habits that can actually amplify the benefits of your medication, improve every other major body system, and compound over months and years. So today I want to break down 6 morning habits that do exactly that. I'll explain the physiology behind why they work, how they support your heart and your blood vessels, and then how you can start implementing them tomorrow, whether you're on medication or not. So let's begin with something so simple it sounds almost too obvious, which is hydration. But before we dismiss this as just basic advice, let me explain what's actually happening at a cardiovascular level when you drink water first thing in the morning. Because the research here is really more compelling than you might think. A study published in the Journal of Human Nutrition and Dietetics found that higher water intake is linked to lower cardiovascular disease risk. Your body loses water overnight through breathing and through sweating. Now, by the time you wake up in the morning, you're already in a mildly dehydrated state. And this matters for your cardiovascular system because blood is mostly water. When you're dehydrated even mildly, your blood becomes more viscous. It becomes thicker, which means that your heart has to work harder to pump it through your blood vessels. Now, the other thing happening during dehydration is that your body tries to maintain blood pressure by constricting blood vessels, and this increases systemic vascular resistance, which again forces your heart to pump against more pressure. Over time, these repeated episodes of mild dehydration contribute to endothelial dysfunction, damage to the inner lining of your blood vessels, and that's the first step in developing atherosclerosis. When you drink water first thing in the morning, you're doing several things here. You're reducing blood viscosity, which reduces the work that your heart has to do. You're allowing blood vessels to relax, which lowers your blood pressure. And you're improving circulation, which means better oxygen and better nutrient delivery to your tissues, including the heart muscle itself. The effects here aren't subtle. Studies show that blood viscosity can normalize within 30 minutes of adequate hydration. What I would say here is this. Aim for about 500 ml of water within 30 minutes of waking. That's roughly 2 glasses. You want enough to make a difference, but not so much that you're uncomfortable. And the important thing is do this before coffee, because coffee is a diuretic and that can actually worsen dehydration if you're not hydrated first. Moving on to the second habit, and this is actually where we see some of the most dramatic effects on your cardiovascular function, and this is morning walking. Now, a 2013 study published in Hypertension found that morning walking reduces blood pressure and arterial stiffness effects that persist throughout the day. Now, the timing here is quite important. Your blood pressure naturally has a circadian pattern. It's lower during sleep and then rises sharply in the morning as your body prepares for activity. Now, this morning surge in blood pressure is actually when most heart attacks and strokes occur. The combination of rising blood pressure, increased cardiac demand, and a hypercoagulable state where your blood is more prone to clotting creates this vulnerable period. What morning walking does is it blunts this surge. When you walk at moderate pace, your skeletal muscles contract rhythmically, which helps to pump blood back to your heart. And what this does is it activates something called the muscle pump mechanism, which reduces the work your heart has to do and lowers your blood pressure. Your blood vessels also respond by releasing nitric oxide, which is a powerful vasodilator that helps arteries relax and become more flexible. The effect on arterial stiffness is really important here. Arterial stiffness, measured by something called pulse wave velocity, is a really strong predictor of cardiovascular events. Stiffer arteries mean your heart has to work harder. It means your blood pressure becomes more volatile. It means less efficient delivery of blood to organs. Morning exercise acutely improves arterial compliance. It makes vessels more flexible, more responsive, more efficient. Now, I'm under no illusion here that everyone watching this video will be able to go for a half-an-hour walk as soon as they wake up. Clearly, for some people, this might sound a bit ridiculous, but if you think about how your great-grandparents would have lived, they didn't have cars, they didn't have TVs. They would have got up, either walked the kids to school, walked to the shops to get something for breakfast because there weren't fridges back then, maybe walk into the garden to get something that they would have grown. And in other countries where the rates of diabetes or heart attacks aren't anywhere near what we have in the Western world, they will be on their feet for the vast majority of the day. If you think about it, a half-an-hour walk in the morning isn't really extreme. It's actually just a fraction of what we used to do before modern life took over. Now, you don't need an hour-long workout. The studies showing these benefits typically use 30 to 40 minutes of brisk walking. The key is that it's moderate intensity, enough to elevate your heart rate, but not so intense that you're gasping for breath. You should be able to hold a conversation, but feel like you're working. And this intensity activates beneficial cardiovascular adaptations without triggering excessive stress responses. And if you're really struggling because, work is tough or life is just extremely busy, then just ask yourself this: what would be better for you? Setting your alarm half an hour earlier and walking around the block, getting fresh air before everyone else wakes up, building your fitness, improving your mood, or taking multiple medications to give the same effect? Because that honestly is what it comes down to a lot of the time. Number 3 takes us into nutrition, specifically the composition of your first meal, which should be a protein-rich breakfast. Now, research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2015 found that protein-rich breakfasts improve your blood pressure and increase satiety throughout the day. And here's the physiology. So, when you eat a high-carbohydrate breakfast, especially refined carbs like cereal or toast or pastries, even granola, which we used to think was a healthier alternative, your blood sugar spikes rapidly. Your pancreas responds by releasing a large bolus of insulin. What this does is it creates a blood sugar roller coaster, where you have high blood sugar, then a crash a few hours later, then hunger and cravings, then another spike when you eat again. Each of these fluctuations triggers inflammatory responses and oxidative stress in your blood vessel walls. In contrast, a protein-rich breakfast, something like eggs or Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, this creates a much more stable blood sugar response. Now, protein requires more time to digest. It releases glucose into your bloodstream much more slowly. It triggers satiety hormones that reduce your hunger later in the day. The amino acids from protein also provide the building blocks for producing neurotransmitters like dopamine and noradrenaline, which help with focus and energy without the crash that you get from sugar. Now, the blood pressure effect is equally important here. High carbohydrate meals trigger insulin release, and chronically elevated insulin levels lead to sodium retention, which increases your blood volume and therefore your blood pressure. Insulin also affects the sympathetic nervous system, increasing your heart rate and your vascular tone. A protein-rich breakfast avoids all of these effects, and it leads to lower blood pressure readings throughout the day. As well as that, starting your day with protein sets this psychological anchor. You're less likely to make poor food choices later because you're not fighting hunger and cravings driven by blood sugar instability. This indirect effect on your overall diet quality compounds over time and contributes to your long-term cardiovascular health. And if you're wondering what I have for breakfast, which a lot of people have asked me in the comments, to be honest, it changes quite often, but there are some general rules that I try to stick by. Protein and fiber always make up the majority, and I always use extra virgin olive oil. Now, yesterday it was a really thin slice of proper seeded sourdough from an uncut loaf. A big drizzle of proper extra virgin olive oil. Video on olive oil coming soon, by the way, with some sea salt on top. 2 tablespoons of cottage cheese and a small handful of seeds. Today, what I did was put some chopped onion in a pan with some sliced mushrooms, some asparagus, sautéed it for 5 minutes, add 3 beets and eggs, a handful of rockets, and then some grated parmesan. Put it under the grill for a couple of minutes, and then sprinkle some seeds on top. And then what you've got is an omelette with tons of protein, tons of fiber, tons of color, and healthy fats. Now, I ate that at around 8 a.m. after walking the dog. It's now around midday and I'm still full. And that's the hidden power of big healthy breakfasts like this. It might be more than you're used to, but over time, it will absolutely suppress any cravings for high sugar food that most people usually get mid-morning. Number 4 is about something that takes only 5 minutes, but has effects that ripple throughout your entire cardiovascular system for hours, which is slow breathing. Research published in Frontiers in Physiology in 2017 found that slow breathing improves your autonomic balance and reduces blood pressure. Now, your autonomic nervous system has 2 branches. Sympathetic, which is your fight or flight response, and parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest response. Now, in modern life, most people are sympathetically dominant. Just think about your typical morning. There's a good chance that for you, the alarm goes off. You immediately grab your phone before you've even properly opened your eyes. You scroll through emails or the news or Instagram. You throw the TV on in the background, pour some cereal into a bowl while standing at the counter, and then you're out the door. Your stress hormones are already firing before you've even left the house. This chronic sympathetic activation, it raises your blood pressure, increases your heart rate, it promotes inflammation, and over time it damages your cardiovascular system. The thing is, we've normalized this frantic rush, this rat race. I definitely used to do it, but it doesn't have to be that way. What if you just woke up half an hour earlier? Set your alarm for 6:30 instead of 7. Give yourself the gift of not immediately jumping into chaos. No phone for the first few minutes, no TV blaring, just you sitting quietly doing 5 minutes of slow breathing before your day really begins. Slow breathing is one of the most powerful tools for shifting towards parasympathetic dominance. When you breathe slowly, typically around 5 to 6 breaths per minute, compared to the usual 12 or 20, you activate the vagus nerve, the wandering nerve, the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. What this does is it triggers a relaxation response. Your heart rate decreases, your blood pressure drops, arterial tone relaxes, and your heart rate variability, which is the variation in time between heartbeats, it increases, which is a marker of good cardiovascular health and resilience. The big problem with this, though, is that most people will think this is a bit wacky or extreme. How on earth can 5 minutes of slow breathing affect my long-term health? Well, think of it this way. Communities around the world where people routinely live towards 90 or 100, people in the blue zones, these folk have lifestyles completely different to ours. They won't be on their phone first thing in the morning. They probably don't watch a lot of TV. They don't have rush hour or any of these stresses that we have. This 5 or 10 minutes of peace before your day begins isn't wacky. To be honest, it's just a tiny glimpse of what an entire day used to look like before we crammed it full of notifications and deadlines and constant stimulation. You're not doing something extreme here. You're just carving out a fraction of the calm that people in the blue zones experience, and probably your grandparents used to experience naturally throughout the whole day. Every day they wake up slowly, they move at a reasonable pace, they're not battling chronic stress from the moment they open their eyes. Now, we can't replicate their entire lifestyle, obviously, but we can borrow this small piece of it. Just 5 minutes of intentional calm in a sea of chaos. Now, the technique is quite simple here. Just sit comfortably, breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds, and then breathe out through your mouth for 5 seconds, and then continue this for 5 minutes. You can do this right after your morning walk or before breakfast. The timing is less important than the consistency. What you're doing here is setting a baseline state for your nervous system that influences how you respond to stress throughout the day. What's compelling about slow breathing is that the benefits are both acute and chronic. In the moment, when you're actually doing it, you'll feel calmer, you'll feel more centered, your blood pressure will drop measurably. Over weeks and months of consistent practice, you build greater parasympathetic tone, which means your baseline state becomes more relaxed. Your response to stress becomes more measured, and your cardiovascular system operates under less chronic strain. It's just 5 minutes that changes the trajectory of your entire day. The final point on the list today is number 5, and it's something that might sound a bit soft or even unscientific at first, and it's something that's had a bit of pushback in other videos, but the data here is actually overwhelming, and this one is social connection in the morning, and I mean real connection, not just scrolling through Instagram or firing off a quick text. I'm talking about sitting down with someone that you actually care about and actually having a proper conversation. No matter how busy your day is or what your job is, everyone can make time for this. If you live with a partner or a flatmate or family, then here's what I suggest. For the first 20 to 30 minutes after you wake up, forget breakfast for a minute. Don't put the TV on. Don't reach for your phone. Just make a cup of tea or a coffee. Sit on the sofa or stay in bed and just talk. Get the kids in bed with you. How did you sleep? What's on your mind? What are your plans for the day? What's stressing you out? What are you looking forward to? It sounds a bit simple, maybe even a bit stupid to some people. I get that. But the research on social connection and heart health is some of the most robust that we have. A 2010 meta-analysis which reviewed over 148 studies involving, get this, over 300,000 people. What it found was that strong social relationships increased the likelihood of survival over that time period by 50%. It's massive. That's a bigger effect than quitting smoking, more protective than losing weight if you're obese, and more powerful than taking most medications. And here's the physiology behind all of this. When you have meaningful social interaction, your body releases oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. Now, oxytocin doesn't just make you feel good, it has direct cardiovascular effects. It lowers cortisol, your primary stress hormone. It reduces blood pressure. It decreases heart rate. It improves heart rate variability, which, as we talked about earlier, is a marker of cardiovascular resilience. Oxytocin also has anti-inflammatory effects throughout your entire body, which over time reduces this chronic low-grade inflammation that drives atherosclerosis and heart disease. Loneliness, on the other hand, feeling lonely does the opposite. Chronic loneliness triggers the same physiological stress response as physical danger. Your sympathetic nervous system stays activated. Cortisol levels remain elevated. Blood pressure stays high. Inflammation increases over months and years. This chronic stress state, it damages your blood vessels. It increases the risk of heart attacks and strokes, and it accelerates aging at the cellular level. Now, if you live alone, which millions of people do, this doesn't mean that you're doomed. What it means is that if you feel lonely, which you may not do, if you feel lonely, then you need to be intentional about creating connection. You could schedule a call with a sibling or your kids or a close friend a few mornings a week. Even a 10 or 15-minute phone call where you're properly engaged, not multitasking, not scrolling through emails while you talk. It makes a measurable difference. Video calls are even better because you get the benefit of seeing facial expressions and body language, which deepens this sense of connection. Now, I'm under no illusion here that everyone gets on brilliantly with the people they live with. Some people are in difficult relationships. Some mornings are tense and difficult. If that's the case, then this isn't about forcing awkward conversations with someone that you're fighting with. It's about finding connection wherever you can. Maybe that's a call to someone who does make you feel better. Maybe it's a quick chat with a neighbor when you're out for your morning walk. Maybe it's joining a local running group or a community class where you see the same faces regularly. The point is this: human beings are social creatures. We evolved in tribes. We're wired for connection. And when we go an entire morning without speaking to anyone, without meaningful interaction, which so many people do these days, we're depriving our bodies of something that they need to function optimally. Your cardiovascular system responds to isolation the same way it responds to chronic stress, because to your body, they're the same thing. Starting your day with connection, even just 10 or 20 minutes of genuine conversation, sets a completely different physiological tone. It lowers your baseline stress. It improves your mood. It makes you more resilient to whatever challenges come up later in the day. And over weeks and months and years, that compounds into better cardiovascular health, lower disease risk, and quite frankly, a longer life. The common element across all 5 of these habits is that they're addressing different aspects of cardiovascular function in a coordinated way. Hydration optimizes blood viscosity and vascular tone. Morning walking blunts the blood pressure surge and improves arterial compliance. A protein-rich breakfast stabilizes blood sugar and reduces insulin-driven sodium retention. Social connection lowers your cortisol. It improves your heart rate variability, and it reduces the chronic stress that damages your blood vessels. And what slow breathing does is that it shifts your nervous system balance. Now, none of these habits alone is a miracle intervention, but together, done consistently, they create a morning routine that sets up your cardiovascular system for success. They reduce the cumulative stress on your heart and your blood vessels. They improve the efficiency of blood flow. They enhance your body's resilience to challenges throughout the day. And because they're morning habits, they don't require ongoing willpower or decision-making. You do them once early in the day, and the benefits persist for hours. The challenge that most people face isn't understanding what to do. It's actually implementing these habits consistently. We're all stuck in our ways to some degree, and a change of routine is often really difficult. And starting all 5 at once can be really overwhelming. So what I suggest is picking just one or two, the ones that seem most accessible or most relevant to your current situation, and then building from there. Once those become automatic, then add another one in. Within a few weeks, you'll have constructed a morning routine that's actively protecting your heart, not through luck or genetics, but through deliberate evidence-based actions that compound over time.